Okay. Can you guys hear me all right? Excellent. Yeah, I can. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Teddy Andres. Sorry about that wait. I'm the studio coordinator of sculpture here at Anderson Ranch, and it gives me great pleasure to be introducing Brent Howard tonight, as well as Rebecca Norris Webb and Alex Webb this evening. Before we begin, if you can, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Thank you. And Anderson Ranch would also like to acknowledge that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Tonight's program will consist of 2 faculty lectures, followed by a Q&A. So please save your questions until the very end, and we look forward to those questions. Okay. First, I would like to introduce Brent Howard. Brent Howard is a sculptor based out of Spring, Texas. His recent work examines the alchemic notion of environment and materiality, along with their storied past and present state, to transmute the past within the auratic present. Mr. Howard's most recent work explores the essence of individual materiality and poiesis through alabaster, marble, metal, and fiberglass. Brent was also a longtime assistant to Louise Bourgeois, as well as worked on major works for Nari Ward, Yoko Ono, and Leonardo Drew. He was core faculty in the sculpture department at Yale School of Art from 2009 to 2020, and has taught at Skowhegan Artist Residency, Nashua Sculpture Symposium, as well as a certified sculptural and pipe welder. Please welcome to the stage Brent Howard.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, can everyone see me over the podium? It's been one of those days. Sorry. We did a check and everything came up, and then when we came back, the dongle didn't work. So I wanted to just kind of say something really briefly. About 25 years ago, I met Nari Ward. When I was an undergrad. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Nari Ward, I met when I was an undergrad, and he convinced me to apply to Hunter at New York City. So I did. I got in. I worked under Nari for 4 classes. I was his TA for 2 classes, and then I started working on large-scale projects for Nari, including Art Basel, Documenta, New York City Parks, just to name a few. So for me to be here teaching a master class as well as giving a lecture and having his new work, GOAT, which is right up here on the hill, is something that is very special to me. And I'm glad that you're all here to be part of it. For me to be here with someone who is so integral of shifting my life to be here. So with that said, these are a few people that were my bosses. That's Louise. Next. That's Nari in his studio. Next. All right. Yeah, man. Check this out. All right. This is Martin Kursells. He was my boss at Yale School of Art. This is Robert Storr. He was my other boss at the Yale School of Art. This is Yoko Ono, another boss of that giant shoe I made. And Leonardo Drew, another boss. The reason why I say boss is I made work for them, but also I was honored to kind of learn underneath them as we work together. So this being, a teaching residency for me, I figured I was going to switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to go into the past maybe 5 years. and extrapolate some things. So this isn't going to be me describing all of the work. It's going to kind of be a lineage of where I'm at now. So this is a piece called Store. Underneath, you can see there's a cast iron leg. That was a leg based off of someone I cared very deeply about in their home. So I renditioned it to kind of change the parameters and kind of the specs of it. And at the time, I was reading Moby Dick for the 3rd time. So for me, reading books more that I truly care about over 20, 25 years, the things that I find very interesting kind of change and transmutate. So this is a show I had at Yale School of Art. These are 4 different legs that were cast in plaster with mirrors. So there's 4 parts kind of working with representing different 4 limbs. And at the same time, I was kind of looking at the different trajectories of kind of things, amputations, things that are kind of become surrogates, things that are replaced but not necessarily the same kind of, organic. I was also studied under Robert Morris when I was at Hunter. So I do have kind of a minimalist background per se. So this was kind of influenced from Moby Dick as well as an infinite regress of Robert Morris's eye sculpture. So this is drawing that I do. So I kind of make bodies of work and then have a series of drawings that are kind of like a conduit or like a jumping off that kind of are the in-between spaces. This is lyrics from a band called Mastodon that loosely made a thematic album based on Moby Dick. So this is bold Helvetica. So I looked into typography when I make these as kind of a material. So the bold Helvetica is the most kind of neutral, and this is all graphite, it's charcoal on paper. And there's 43, 56 by 48 size paper, and it took about almost 4 years. So this kind of drawing back to this time you're going to see of like what Mike Kelly used to call kind of work hours. So I'm kind of a studio rat, and I'm jumping, so it'll all kind of tie in. So these are those 4 pieces that we saw previous, and this is called Burial at Sea. I actually contacted the U.S. Navy to have these ceremoniously put out to sea because the person that these were made after, we kind of went our own ways. So it was, for me, kind of putting an end to a chapter. And these are fiberglass forget-me-nots. It's the most kind of ubiquitous kind of flower. It's the one with the 5 petals and the, I'm sorry, I'm losing the one in the middle. So if you have like this idea of a flower, this is kind of the one that it's based off of. So then, for starting a new body of work, I started making this is from a band called Pig Destroyer, and it's called Phantom Limb. So Phantom Limb, I was very interested in. There was, it's a notion that when people have amputations, they have feeling of the limb, a pain in their limb. That's a sensation, or it can be excruciating, but the limb is actually not there. It's a primal part of the brain that kind of is illicit in kind of the instinctual qualities of something of pain. So with this was done in Yale font, which is by Michael Carter. They actually have their own font, and I matched the colors, which is a different 70% cobalt. You don't really need to know that. So this was gouache on paper. And then this took 2.5 years. So the reason the lyrics are extremely, if you heard Pig Destroyer, you can tell by the name that the lyrics are a bit aggressive. So changing the font and kind of putting it back while I was at Yale, knowing that if I ever did sell these, that I could actually be sued. because they do own copyright Michael Carter, 1982. So I'm going to jump through these. So then me and my ex-partner, we taught at Yale and we left in 2020. I had a solo show coming up, and we moved to Long Island, and she was writing her second book. And then I went back into the welding fabrication. So I would leave for work before the sun would get up, and then drive home when it was dark. So I've never lived outside of a city in my life, and I would see deer everywhere. So I'd almost hit them. You'd see them on the side of the road. But there was a few deer that I would see that kind of had broken legs. It's a little bit macabre, but they would have broken legs, but rigor mortis would set in, and it was mostly in does. And they would have this kind of beautiful gestural broken leg, but everything would kind of come down to a single point. So this is more just kind of working with different material and these things that I would see that, you know, were something I've never witnessed, you know, carcasses on the side of the road constantly. So this is kind of just more experimental. I don't really know where this work is going to go. So then I started talking to hunters that I worked with, and they talk about antlers, how they shed every year. So I would go for walks, and I would find racks of shedded antlers that they would, you know, grow. When the bigger ones would come in, they would push out the little smaller ones. So when I was doing metalwork, I got knocked out of work because I tore my shoulder. I had 2 torn rotator cuffs. And the weird sensation about these works is I could actually feel inside my shoulder the actual cuff rubbing. And this is going to sound a little strange, but I could actually feel what it felt like. I could feel the shape just from the movement and the grinding. It's a little gross, I understand. So I was surrounded by water, and I was really, at this point, I couldn't really do a lot of sculpture because of my injury. So I started, this is gouache on paper. So we were around water, and it was springtime, and I've never experienced spring except in a city. So this piece is called As Above, As Below. These are colors for camouflage. So the thing I was interested in with digital camouflage is it's an algorithmic, two-dimensional image that's based to replicate 3 dimensions or suppress the depth of perception. So I really found it interesting that something that's 2-dimensional can elicit and also hide 3-dimensionality and vice versa. So this was the second one I was working on, and you can see it's not finished because when I would mix these colors, I would do them in one shot because, you know, you have to saturate them with water, and sometimes the color's off. So this is an exact moment that me and my ex split. So it's kind of a time piece. So we split. I left and moved back to New York in Jersey City. I got a studio in Kearney, a really good friend of mine where it's an amazing place. It's called the Garden Ship, if anyone's there. It's a collider space. So at this time, I couldn't paint or draw because of my injury, so I would have to kind of point and use dots. So this, instead of kind of, you know, living with that schism in the work, I kind of just repurposed it and continued. So this is also just kind of a transmutation of a red deer antlers. Again, these are things that I'm kind of processing because, you know, within a year I lost, you know, my partner, my stepson, my dog, my house, my studio, my career. So, you know, you kind of get the point. So then in New Jersey, I was kind of processing everything that I kind of was dealing with and seeing. And for me, dealing with this stuff and being, you know, in a survival type mode because I had to, you know, continue working with a torn shoulder and make a living. So as I was doing that, this was kind of a way to process, and I really did not think as much. So, you know, going through the motions, this is 2-dimensional kind of blending the 3 things in together. And then the legs started coming back. So I redid these in fiberglass based on the original thing I saw. So this was a sculpture public work that I did in Nashua Sculpture Symposium. It's an old train yard. So I used the material, and based off of the truss work, there's a bridge behind it. I kind of mimicked that, blew it up, and then used granite, which is, as you can see, the retaining blocks. And then on the top was an amalgam of a white-tailed deer antler. So kind of instead of using 2 dimensions, I used 3 dimensions in the actual material to reference its environment to hopefully, coalesce and be within the environment, but then kind of bring something that's foreign, but the shape is very, ubiquitous to the surrounding areas, because the white-tailed deer is the state deer of New Hampshire. And then this happened. Yeah, I'm just as surprised as you are. So this was right after surgery. When I woke up, the surgeon said that I had almost a full tear, and then he had to put 5 anchors into my shoulder, and this was last August. So being out of work for 4 months, I kind of went back to drawing, and I've never really understood how much art was a part of my life. And it really got me through a lot of hard times. So while I was healing, I moved to Texas. I picked up my studio, and I am currently back in school for pipe welding. So this is the work I'm working on now. So I just wanted to show kind of the trajectory of where it's going. This is based off of, my pipe work, as well as this leg. And then these are alabaster butterflies, kind of holding together this kind of transmutation from a fabric leg to an actual pipe. This is marble. I started working with marble and just different connections. So real quickly, the bevel on a pipe means that it's primed. It's in stasis, waiting for a connector. It's waiting to be put together, to be welded. So this work, I kind of, left all 3 points kind of open as a suggestion, where it's not tied in. It's not, it's in stasis, ready to be kind of worked on. This piece is about this big, so it's a little hard to tell. And also, through all of this, I had to retrain kind of my new arm. I mean, it's not new, but just kind of get used to the muscle memory, and, get back to working condition to continue welding. This is translucent alabaster. This is at a 32 degrees angle, because when you have to bevel a pipe, it's between 32 and 39 degrees. Anything wider than that can compromise its structural integrity. So going back in as a student, with kind of my past, it was like a reintroduction to the circle. But this time it's very tedious and very more precious, and has a lot more kind of non-subjectiveness towards it. So this is, again, translucent alabaster. So while I'm back in school, I went back to school 5 months after my injury, so I had to retrain and practice. So these are just kind of drawings that I would do to kind of get my arm and situated. And also these are different movements for different types of welds. This is technically a 60-10 uphill route. So you can see these may never see the light of day, but this is kind of where I'm at right now. So this is a vivisection of when you stack welds. So that bottom one is the first generation. So then when you pad welds, it's called padding, you split the difference. So then instead of doing 3 rows, I did as many as until it reached the top. Just did the other side because you're welding from 2 different areas. So then I decided to take the color scheme of the previous digital camouflage and then kind of do this with very tedious points. So this, again, is my work. I feel as of late, it's been for me. It's been very kind of selfish, not in a negative way. I don't know how it could be positive, but it's more of kind of like just going through the motions and giving what, again, like Mike Kelly said, is like love hours within the studio. So these are soapstone, alabaster, and black African wonderstone, And these are little components of a TIG welder. It's like the machine that I'm currently working on. So they're about this big. Again, very, very tedious, very meticulous. And then it brings me to, so now that I'm a welder, I mean, I always was a welder, but a pipe welder, we have different names. So when I got brought into pipe welding, I was a structural welder before, they have things that are nothing but body parts. So you have the leg of a weld, the toe of a weld, the crown of a weld, the breast of a weld, the belly of a weld, the elbow of a weld, and then eyelets and eye hooks. And we also have these things called lifting lugs. This is, translucent alabaster, and they're about this big. Again, these may never see the light, I mean, they're seeing the light of day now, but going outside. So then there's also a lifting lug, which is something that you weld onto something that you're lifting or moving, and then as soon as you're done, you cut it off. So it has one existence, and I find this very interesting. Again, I don't know exactly where this stuff is going, but this is kind of where I am now in my studio. So, and that is all. Thank you.